I had a consulting call last week with a state agency, and they asked a really smart question. They said, we're thinking about doing a multi-year laptop contract and using fixed percentage off MSRP. Does that make sense? Now, on the surface, that sounds clean, it sounds fair, it sounds structured, it sounds like you're protecting taxpayer dollars. But I'm going to tell you something most vendors won't say out loud. That approach breaks down in the real world. And not only does it break down, it can actually drive away the very vendors you want responding to your RFP. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through why percentage off MSRP sounds good but doesn't hold up, how OEMs and VARs actually evaluate your contract, why multi-year pricing is harder than it looks, and how to structure it so you attract strong responses instead of weak ones. Because here's the reality. Vendors don't avoid bad deals. They avoid unwinnable deals, unprofitable deals, and high-risk deals. Most government agencies believe this. If we create a fair, structured RFP, vendors will come. That's not how it works. Every OEM, every VAR runs your opportunity through a filter. They're asking, is this winnable? Is this profitable? Is it worth the effort? How much risk am I taking on? And if your contract structure introduces too much uncertainty, they don't complain, they just quietly don't respond. Well, let's talk about the big one, percentage off MSRP. This is probably one of the most misunderstood pricing mechanisms in public sector IT. Because here's the truth, MSRP is not a fixed benchmark. It's a moving target, controlled entirely by the OEM. MSRP changes when new models come out, when component costs shift, when OEMs reposition product lines, and sometimes quietly mid-cycle. So you might think we locked in at 40% discount, but what actually happens is the MSRP moves, and your net price goes up anyway. Then there's the SKU issue. The laptop you bid in year one, it's gone in 12 to 18 months, replaced by a new model, a new chipset, a new structure. So now you're trying to compare pricing across products that aren't even the same anymore. And yet the contract still says percentage off MSRP. Here's the part nobody says out loud. Vendors can hit your discount requirement and still not give you their best price. Because vendors don't price off MSRP. They price off deal registrations, OEM incentives, inventory position, competitive pressure. So you end up with something that looks compliant but isn't necessarily competitive. Now layer in a multi-year contract. This is where things really get interesting, because now you're asking vendors to predict pricing in a market that changes every 60 to 90 days. Think about that. Processors change, memory costs change, supply chains shift, tariffs hit, war breaks out, cats and dogs start living together. And you're saying lock this down for 3 to 5 years. Let me give you a line you can take with you. If you try to lock down pricing in a market that changes every 90 days, vendors won't absorb that risk. They'll price it in. Or worse, they won't bid at all. When vendors see rigid multi-year pricing requirements, one of 3 things happens. They pad pricing up front to protect themselves from future risk. They minimize engagement. They submit something compliant, but not aggressive. They no bid entirely, and you never even know they were interested. This is the one most agencies never see, the silent no bid, where strong vendors look at your RFP and decide it's not worth the risk. So you end up with fewer responses, less competition, and weaker pricing. But on paper, everything looks fine. This is the real question. If percent off MSRP doesn't work, what does? Well, first, market basket pricing instead of chasing MSRP. Define a standard set of configurations. For example, entry-level device, mid-range device, power user device, maybe a mobile workstation. Then track those configurations over time and reprice them annually. Now you're measuring actual market pricing, not theoretical discounts. Second, benchmark against cooperative contracts. Organizations like NASPO, Value Point, Sourcewell, these are nationally competed contracts. If your pricing starts drifting above those benchmarks, you've got an issue, regardless of what your MSRP discount says. Third, Build in pricing refresh cycles, quarterly, semi-annually. Require vendors to update pricing, reflect market changes, introduce new models. This keeps your contract alive. Here's the tension you have to manage. Government agencies want price protection. Vendors need flexibility. If you lean too far toward control, you lose participation. If you lean too far toward flexibility, you lose pricing discipline. The goal is balance. Here's what I've seen work in the real world. Stop fixating on percent off MSRP. Instead, focus on, is the pricing competitive with the market? Use pricing guardrails, not handcuffs. Instead of rigid discounts, use language like, pricing must remain competitive with national benchmarks and subject to periodic review. Define refresh expectations. Expect new models, equivalent or better performance, ongoing alignment with the market. Allow recompetition for larger purchases. Let awarded vendors compete again. This keeps pricing sharp. If you want strong responses, signal that your contract is winnable, fair, and worth the effort. That means clear expectations, reasonable flexibility, and real opportunity. So, back to the original question. Should we use a fixed percentage off MSRP in a multi-year contract? The answer is, it sounds good on paper, but it doesn't hold up in practice. Let me leave you with this. You don't control your costs by locking vendors down. You control them by keeping the contract competitive. If you're in public sector procurement or you're selling into it, this is the part of the process that nobody really talks about, but it drives everything. If this was helpful, follow along because I'm going to keep breaking down how stuff actually works in the real world. Thanks for watching.